Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my first ever video. And I wanted to commence the channel with a sunrise on this day after yesterday's incredibly eventful. Given how eventful yesterday was, I really wanted to start chronicling events because it's incredible what's happening. MashaAllah, MashaAllah, MashaAllah. The sun is about to come out. Oh my word. Let me see if I can zoom in. Oh, you can't zoom out of this mode. Okay, no worries. Oh my lord. Look at that. Oh, MashaAllah. Let me see if I can get another bit. MashaAllah. Would you have a look at that? It does not get old. It honestly does not get old at all. MashaAllah. I'm here every single morning. Well, the mornings I'm not lazy to come out, or just have coffee, watch the sunrise, and then, commence the morning routine, the morning exercise, the morning walk, the morning swim, and I don't like recording people because I hate it when people just record without other people's permission. So I am going to try and respect people's privacy as much as I possibly can. But mashallah, this is really what I wanted to commence the channel with. Isn't that something? Mashallah. MashaAllah, MashaAllah, MashaAllah. This is really a spectacular sight. Yeah. But as I was saying, I wanted to start my channel yesterday, but I wanted to take everything that has happened yesterday in and commence this morning with this sunrise, because two key events happened yesterday. One obvious, well, actually three things happened. Three things actually happened that were incredibly noteworthy. And one of them was obviously Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's inspection of the Sinai division of the Egyptian army. I'm not entirely sure how many divisions are based in the Sinai of the Egyptian army, but well, the military, I should say, not the army, because I could see air forces as well. He was making that inspection, and I believe it's called, that particular unit is called the crown of the Egyptian military. So, you're looking at the creme de la creme of as far as Arab military power is concerned, because they all depend, in reality, they all depend on Egypt and Pakistan, but obviously Pakistan is not an Arab country. it's highly debatable whether Egyptians are Arabs, but I will not get into that historical argument. In any event, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. And what was remarkable was I was watching it live on Al Qahira, and essentially it was really a show of force, a show of deterrence, I felt. And I'm not entirely sure what that means. Well, what does that mean going forward? To be honest with you, I did not foresee on October, let's say October 10th, 72 hours after the attack, I did not envision a scenario in which Arab countries or Arab leaders would be comfortable. Well, I shouldn't really say Arab. Let's just put it, I'm not really sure why there's that separation between Arabs and Muslims. Let's just say Muslims altogether would be able to tolerate at all 5,000 deaths. I believe the number is almost at 6,000 now. If you include the 1,000 people or so, the 1,500 people or so who are assumed to still be under the rubble, you are talking about upwards of 7,700 deaths, 7,700 of our brothers and sisters in Palestine who've been butchered, like literally butchered. I mean, there's no other word. It was a slaughter. I mean, Gaza is an abattoir. Gaza is in reality a human abattoir at the moment. And that's what we're all witnessing. And I really thought Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is trying to get ahead of the curve, really. Because at the end of the day, there's no way he is going to be able to suppress the anger. So the only option he has is to utilize it for his own political ends. And right, nothing else needs to be said. Nothing else needs to be said. He knows what the Egyptians actually do. He knows what the people of Al-Masr actually do. I do not see a scenario in which he thinks this is going to turn out well. And he's a survivor. Obviously, he's proven that. The manner of Morsi's death pretty much proved that, beyond all doubt. MashaAllah, look at the sun. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Oh my God. See it every morning and still be spellbound by it. So Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is really playing politics in a very, very clever manner. And so I really don't know what the Zionists is made of that. And this is happening not in a vacuum, because it was after an Egyptian, a Zionist tank hit an Egyptian post, I believe, on the Rafah border on the Egyptian side and caused some damage. So, and then what you have, the other major thing was Recep Tayyip Erdogan's main political ally came out and said 4 days ago now, that Israel should be given 24 hours to basically stop the bombing. And obviously, if they do not, then, you know, the implications are implied. And it does not, I believe Erdagon, perhaps in response to that, made a speech at the Turkish parliament yesterday. And the speech basically did not call the Zionists terror, but he did say they were a group. He didn't specify. He was a bit coy with his words. He did not specify what sort of a group, but he did call them a group. He did not refer to them as a state. And essentially, I think Turkey is, I don't really think the Zionists will give much of a thought to Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's military prowess and the Sinai. I think they're confident that they can take care of that themselves. But I think once you have Turkey involved, then that's an entirely different category of fish. And you're talking about a country that can essentially has the industrial military complex and the unity within its population to basically do what Putin did, which was declare an all-out war. And that means economically, socially, in society, within society itself. It means politically, diplomatically, basically all hands on deck as far as the Russians are concerned, regardless of your profession, regardless, everything is orientated towards winning the war. And as everybody knows, let me see if I can get this lightning right. I'm sorry, I'm really not a selfie person. As I said, this is the first time ever I'm using a selfie stick. And it's actually not mine. I borrowed it from a friend. So forgive the the amateur nature of the production, I guess you would call it. Okay, is that? Yeah, but you don't see the sun. The point is to see the sun, isn't it? Oh, that's awesome. Let me take a dip, and then hopefully the lightning will be better once I come back, and then we'll pick it up from what Erdagon's speech entailed. Because I simply cannot believe that almost 10,000 Palestinians are gone. Almost 10,000 Palestinians are gone. I mean, it's really, really, really difficult to comprehend that. It's really difficult to comprehend that. 10,000 souls have been lost. Almost 10,000. And that cannot go unanswered. I just don't see how that can go unanswered. Now that we've covered two of the key events, I guess we'll go into detail after, because the third one is almost comical. It would be comical if it wasn't such a Greek tragedy. It really would be, because the third one was, I would call him the Bedesha Emperor of the known universe. Like, for those of you who are science fiction fans, I guess you'll know what I'm referring to. The chairman of JOM, and guess what the Bedesha Emperor was? Guess what the Bedesha Emperor of the known universe was doing while Gaza was burning? And the Al Jazeera journalist, Asaf, I believe his name is Asaf al-Dubni, forgive me if I've got the name wrong, but he's been an amazing journalist who's been covering it so professionally, so dedication. I mean, the professionalism that the Palestinians, all the all the journalists that are on the ground in Gaza who are actually reporting from the ground have just like their level of professionalism has been absolutely profound. Like it's honestly profound. Like you could not help but respect their level of professionalism, because there was one Yumni, I believe her name was Yumni, and she was the reporter who the explosion happened behind her. While I was actually watching that, I was actually watching Al Jazeera English that day when it happened. The explosion literally happened live right behind her. And a few days later, we could see her. I suppose she lived in northern Gaza, and we could see her with her 3 children and her husband just basically driving. She was basically recording on a GoPro, I suppose. But as she was trying to make it from the north with her family, from the north of Gaza to the south, and you could literally see them in the car, and just she's showing the streets and the rubble, and what a disaster it was, while she's actually running for her life and for the life of her family. You cannot help but be absolutely in awe of their professionalism. So I really think it's noteworthy to acknowledge the work they have done, the journalists, whether they're Palestinians or not, those on the ground who are actually witnessing that horror, that carnage, who are actually on the ground in that abattoir we now call Gaza. What Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto custodian of the 2 holy mosques, was doing while this was ongoing was holding a fever event. For a fever event, can you imagine? A fever event. That is what he was doing. Football for Vision 2030. So that's how where things stand on the chess piece. You have Abdullah al-Sisi, who sees the gathering storm and wants to get ahead of it. And wants to survive, I imagine. And then you have Erdagon and his political allies basically making ultimatums. And then you have the British Emperor going to football events for fever. I don't really want to mention the Persians because I was incredibly disappointed. I was really disappointed because Hussein Amir Abdullani, who is the Iranian foreign minister, said on a number of occasions before the Baptist hospital was bombed and 500 people were lost, that the Persians were considering a preemptive attack to prevent the slaughter. I don't know if you recall that, but before that bombing, that was what the talking point was. And I remember watching him live as he got off the plane in Jeddah for the IOC meeting, so-called IOC meeting, and you could just see his body language that his bluff was called. I really thought, if you put emotions aside, and I know that's really difficult to do when we're talking about almost 10,000 lives lost of our brethren. That's really difficult thing to say, like put emotions aside. But this is politics, this is war. We have to put our emotions aside and we have to analyze things in a realpolitik manner. And if you analyze that attack from a realpolitik point of view, I really thought that was a master move from Netanyahu, because that bombing really will go down in history. I remember telling my sister that night, if I'm any judge of history, World War III history will say that World War III started with that bombing. I really think that's like that was that was a paradigm shift. Like, that was an absolute paradigm shift. You could not say that that wasn't a paradigm shift. It was. It was an absolute paradigm shift. And it accomplished two things. On one hand, it basically showed to the world, just the way Xi Jinping showed to the Hong Kong people that they have no hope. Once he brought in the military, basically from the mainland, and dressed them up in Hong Kong police uniform, then there was no going back. Hong Kong was done. Hong Kong was done. And to me, I felt like that's what he did with America. There's no going back for America after that. Once America basically got behind the narrative that Israel denied the bombing. You didn't have to be a military expert to realize that basically homemade rockets could not cause that explosion. But once they went ahead with that talking point, you realize that basically America was at a point of no return. America was at a point of no return. They were you could argue they were basically at a point of no return once he stood in Tel Aviv and gave that hug, who could forget that, right? But I really felt it needed to be crystal. So that was one accomplishment. And the other accomplishment, and obviously that led to the cancellation of the summit, basically on the other hand, was he called out Iran's bluff. He really did. He called out Iran's bluff. If you're going to do a preemptive attack and you're going to tell the world you're going to do a preemptive attack, okay, here it is. You needed grounds for that. I've given you that ground. So I really felt like that was a beautiful, well, no, I don't want to use the word beautiful, but it was a master move as far as politics was concerned. And it really called out Iran. It called out Iran's bluff. And it basically put America on the chopping block as far as history is concerned. And international law, for what that is worth, is pathetic. It's not even worth mentioning, honestly. But after the dip, we'll go further into it.